I'm joined by United States Senator Tom Cotton. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Hugh. It's good to be on with you, and I'm glad that you have a far and deep reach into the Old Dominion. And I add my voice to your encouragement to all Virginians to get out today and vote for Glenn Youngkin if you're tired with Virginia not being a competitive state with its neighbors and higher taxes and your kids being indoctrinated to hate America. And you want to send a message to Joe Biden and Democrats in the Congress to stop their radical socialist agenda.
Senator Cotton, you've gone through 2 House generals, 2 Senate generals, election night. You've had primary election as well. Is Election Day the longest day for a candidate?
Well, there's not much left for a candidate to do on Election Day, Hugh. I had the benefit that I planned to win, and all my races were called pretty much immediately after the closing bell.
Yeah.
But no, on my election days in the past, I've gone out and I've thanked my volunteers. I've gone and call center to get out the vote operation, to rally the troops, because although a candidate can't do all that much more persuading on Election Day, the massive operation that is a statewide campaign has a lot to do in terms of making sure that people are going to vote, resolving any controversies at the polls. So there's thousands of hardworking Republicans, from Republican women to young Republicans, teenage Republicans, who are rolling up their sleeves today to try to make sure that Glenn Youngkin and the entire Republican ticket wins. And we owe them a special thanks. I know that Glenn Youngkin is going to be out thanking them today, even if the campaigning to persuade voters is more or less done at this point.
Well, last night on Election Eve, Terry McAuliffe managed to contribute to the case against him, saying this, cut number 5, Senator Cotton.
And I promise you, we've got to diversify our teacher base here in Virginia. 50% of the students in Virginia schools, K-12, 50% are students of color, and yet 80% of the teachers are white. We all know what we have to do in a school to make everybody feel comfortable in school. So,
Senator Cotton, you went to Harvard Law School. I'm not sure they teach constitutional law there, but they did at Michigan, and I've been teaching it for 20. That's unconstitutional hiring based on race. It's just blatantly unconstitutional.
Well, and you could tell that it got rousing applause from the tens and tens of people. The tens and tens of people who have been showing up to Terry McAuliffe rallies. I would further say, Hugh, here's what we can do to make kids feel comfortable in school. We can stand up to far-left woke superintendents and school boards who are concealing rapes that occur in bathrooms because it interferes with their transgendered policies during Pride Month, and then who will transfer the perpetrator to another school where he can rape another girl. We can make sure that schools are teaching our students American history and Virginian history, teaching it straight, teaching it all, but not teaching our children to hate America, not teaching them to see each other first and foremost as a representative of the race that their skin color reflects. Those are the things that we can make, that we can do to help our kids feel comfortable and to learn in schools, as opposed to unconstitutional hiring practices.
Now, Senator Cotton, yesterday your colleague Joe Manchin got up and threw down on the House Democrats. I like to point out to the Steelers fans, West Virginia is next to Virginia. So I think he sees what's going on in Virginia and the repudiation of Terry McAuliffe and Joe Biden and says, that's probably going to happen in West Virginia as well. Were you shocked or pleasantly surprised by Senator Manchin sit down and shut up to the House Democrats yesterday?
Yeah, I thought that Senator Manchin put it very well yesterday when he said he's not going to vote for a bill that will set the country back, that is full of gimmicks and smoke and mirrors budgeting, which the Democrats openly admit this bill is. They openly admit that their so-called revenue raisers won't actually raise that much revenue, or that they are artificially ending programs after 1, 2, 3, or 6 years, hoping that those programs will become entrenched and have to be extended. So Joe Manchin is just calling a spade and saying he's not going to vote for such a bill. He's certainly not going to be rushed into voting for a bill by a bunch of far-left backbenchers in the House of Representatives.
So those far-left backbenchers in the House of Representatives hold in their hands the infrastructure bill. What do you expect the far-left backbenchers to do when Nancy Pelosi is yelling at them?
Well, Hugh, I thought it's interesting that not just Joe Manchin was speaking out publicly yesterday about the House voting on that infrastructure bill, but some of those far-left backbenchers are now saying, no, they want to vote too. They're ready to vote. And I think that it's not just Joe Manchin who recognizes the massive repudiation that's coming tonight in Virginia. but all those far-left backbenchers, and they don't want to be blamed tomorrow morning for having blocked votes on this legislation. So everyone from Joe Manchin to the squad is rushing to deflect the blame for the massive drubbing that Democrats are about to take in Virginia.
Well, that is to me interesting, Senator. I have a column up at the Washington Post landing page. It says Democrats got a message in 2010 when Scott Brown beat Martha Coakley to fill the seat of the late Ted Kennedy, and they didn't listen. They simply went ahead and passed Obamacare anywhere, and they got wiped out in 2010. They lost 63 House seats. Do you expect them to be tone deaf to whatever the message that Virginia sends tonight is?
Hugh, mark it down. I'm not Nostradamus. I just know how Democrats behave. That after tonight, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden and the Ocasio-Cortezes and Bernie Sanders of the world are going to blame the defeat in Virginia on lack of Democratic turnout, lack of Democratic enthusiasm, and double down on their reckless taxing and spending bill. They have to push forward. They have to pass it. It has to be even bigger and bolder, as Chuck Schumer always says. Now, they may be saying that in public, but something tells me that all those vulnerable Democrats in the House, people like Elaine Luria and Abigail Spanberger in Virginia, are not going to be buying what those Democrats are selling, because they know that this massive repudiation in Virginia tonight will spell doom for their party if they proceed.
Senator, I'm not even sure that the moderates can afford to vote for an infrastructure bill. With inflation on the prowl and rising, if they pump $1 trillion into infrastructure, as is proposed in the infrastructure bill, which I originally supported, but I also pay attention to inflationary rates, those moderate Democrats are going to get blamed for inflation if they vote for this.
Yeah, and remember, Hugh, they're calling it the infrastructure bill, and there are some good provisions in that bill that would support better roads, for instance. But there's a lot in that bill that goes to wasteful, pie-in-the-sky, green energy projects, trying to get the camel's nose under the tent of the Green New Deal, and basically give the Secretary of Energy, Jennifer Granholm, a slush fund to go along with John Kerry's ambition to remake our energy economy at a time when Americans are paying $4 at the pump and home heating rates for this winter are going to go through the roof. So there is a lot of peril for the Democrats if they rush headlong into not just their reckless tax and spending bill, but also an infrastructure bill that spends as much on things besides roads and highways as it does on those roads and highways.
So, Senator, I want to switch to foreign affairs now and your service on the Armed Services Committee and Intel Committee. Very slowly, reluctantly, Team Biden has let us know that there are 450-plus American citizens still in Afghanistan. We don't have a number for LPRs. We don't have a number for visa-eligible Afghans who assisted the American military in their mission there. Do you believe they will ever tell us the truth, and do you believe that those American citizens have been abandoned?
Of course they've been abandoned, Hugh. After Joe Biden promised throughout the summer that he would not abandon them, and every one of his mouthpieces went out and assured the American people that, there are fewer than 100 American citizens left, and most of them don't want to leave anyway, and now they're coming back to us and telling them it's 4 or 5 times that much. I don't know why anyone would believe them in their current estimates, having lied to us back in August and September. And, of course, feckless and humiliating retreat from Afghanistan has simply emboldened our adversaries to stick a thumb in Uncle Sam's eye. I mean, Xi Jinping wouldn't even appear on video at the climate change conference in Scotland. Now, most Americans don't care about that, and frankly, I don't either, Hugh. But Xi Jinping knows what a huge priority that is for Joe Biden, so that is a direct rebuke to President Biden. Or look at Vladimir Putin, who's massively building up troops on the border of Ukraine, Hugh. This could be a dangerous flashpoint in the weeks ahead. Do you think Vladimir Putin would be doing that if Joe Biden hadn't proved so hapless in Afghanistan? I very much doubt it.
Hapless is the word. It's a hapless presidency. He fell asleep at COP26 yesterday. Kelly O'Donnell reported on MSNBC. What's that send to the world as a message, Senator Cotton?
Well, it probably signals how boring the topic is in Glasgow and how little they're going to get done. If anything, they're going to contribute to global warming with all the hot air coming out of the gas bags that are gathered in Scotland.
So in terms of, though, what it projects in terms of the frailty of look, the president is frail. Everybody sees that. Does that embolden Putin? Does it embolden Xi vis-a-vis Taiwan to know that we have an isolationist, weak, and physically inert president?
Yeah, well, Hugh, Joe Biden has been in Washington for 50 years, and he's wanted to be president that whole time. And for 50 years, no one in Washington thought that Joe Biden was up to that job. And he didn't magically get up to the job when he turned 78, when he wasn't up to it when he was in his 40s or in his 60s. And I think that's obvious for everyone.
He turned 79 this month. Do you have any hopes that there's going to be any course correction after Virginia votes tonight?
You mark it down. Joe Biden and all the senior Democrats will say how the Virginia results just go to show that they need to double down and accelerate and expand their reckless tax and spending bill. I promise you that will be their message tomorrow, because what else can they say? They're not going to have a course correction and repudiate where they've been for 8 months. But you do have enough vulnerable Democrats in the House that I expect they'll have to pump the brakes at least for a while.
I hope that there are 5 of them who say no mas, no mas. Senator Tom Cotton from Arkansas, thank you for joining me on Election Day in Virginia. Hey.